I would just say there's magic and aliveness in following your dream, like 1,000%. And that truly is priceless. And you're going to have to contend with the material world, with bills, but the adventure of the life, the emergence of the life, the spontaneity and serendipities that happen when following your dream, when believing in the more than we can see, is truly worth it.
What does it mean to live a meaningful inner and outer life? And how do our personal finances fit in that? We tackle those questions and others in the School of Financial Freedom podcast. We talk about the role of money in our personal growth and spiritual liberation, the concrete math of budgeting and saving and investing, and how all this relates to the life you were meant to lead. Each episode is an interview with a former student of my online course, Financial Freedom 1, where they explain their favorite lesson and years later, what financial, behavioral, and spiritual impact it had on them. I'm Douglas Soy, founder of School of Financial Freedom, and your host. Glad you're here. I'm excited for you to meet Jon Marro. Jon Marro is going to talk about lesson 3.3, which is called Owning Your Vision of the Future. We're going to discuss the idea that knowing what you want is life's ultimate skill. It's worth more than talent or hard work, and it's worth almost as much as luck. Have it and disappointment is still probable, but on your own terms. Lack it, and you'll be done to and acted upon. When you meet Jon, you're going to see that he knows exactly what he wants in life, and when he added a little personal finance skills to it, he was able to eliminate his debt and move towards a vision of the life that he wants. Stay tuned for this special episode.
Hi, my name is Jon Marro, and you are listening to the Financial Freedom Podcast.
Hi, everyone. I'm super excited for you to meet Jon Marro today because Jon is a good friend of mine. He is an artist, a mystic, and a visionary, and he's going to tell you a little bit more about himself. And because of who he is, I'm super excited for you to hear what he has to say about lesson 3.3. But Jon, introduce yourself.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for having me, and thank you for ushering me through financial freedom at least twice. I know I've done Financial Freedom 1 and 2 multiple times. I'm someone who really, as you know, loves transformation and loves a workshop and loves a course that I become someone different on the other side of. But as you mentioned, I'm an artist, I'm a mystic, I'm a visionary, I'm a seeker, earth-loving steward who has always had an inclination to study the unseen things in the world, and then as an artist, bring them to life. So I've always from my childhood, had a deep connection to imagination, and then as a seeker, found out about the imaginal world. And it's something I've been in communication with and commune with for my whole life. And why I want financial freedom is to simply be able to serve the muses. That's really my deepest vision of the life that I want, is to be able to listen to what I feel are calls from the other realms. You could call that the ancestor realm. You could call that muses. You could call that the imaginal realm. And the deeper I listen, the more I respond to these projects or these invitations, what feels like cooler stories and projects are given to me. So yeah, that is the deepest vision of my life, is to simply serve that and make the invisible visible.
Well, before we go any further, I want people to be able to see your work. Where can they find you?
So you can go to my website. Is currently I'm doing a new one right now, but you can still find my work there, jonmarro.com, and that's Jon. I'm a Jonathan, so I don't have an H in my name. JONMARRO.com. And then on Instagram is where a lot of people follow me, and that's just at Jon Marro, at JONMARRO.
And you're going to find beautiful stuff on that Instagram page. Given everything you said about being a visionary, I love the fact that you picked lesson 3.3, which is about owning your vision of the future. Tell us about the lesson.
Yeah, so the lesson really spoke to me because I'm very clear, and financial freedom helped me get really clear that I've been guilty of this, but there's the difference between just being a dreamer and maybe an idle dreamer, and even an active dreamer, getting caught in fantasy, and then actually having to deal with the reality of finances, the reality of resources, the reality of actually making those visions come to life. Not only putting food on the table, but actual, money needed for art supplies, for film supplies, for big projects need big resources. And it's been an intimidating thing to um, take on the size vision I have, but I've always felt that little by little, I can do that. And I've always put freedom ahead of finances. I also want to just call out myself and say I am not financially free yet, but I have through through the course, I got out of credit card debt and I paid off all my student loans, both while being in the course. And really, that was just a matter of just making a goal, an achievable goal, and being like a dog on a bone with that, using the tools that were given. And so when I think about this lesson and think about the big vision I have, which is to have a production company called Worlds Within, it's a multimedia storytelling company. I like to think of it as a mystical PBS that brings a lot of the visions that I have within me to life, but also just other stories. As a designer and artist, I do a lot of work with, I'll call them like, I don't know if it's counterculture is the right word, but basically people who are living on the fringes and the edges and doing society and doing capitalism very different. One of those, his name is Bayo Komolafe, and he talks about this notion of fugitivity, which is how do we do work outside of the system to create something new? And I see a lot of these people, a lot of them are activists, a lot of them are artists, a lot of them are mystics or healers, doing incredible, incredible work that's never going to be recognized. And they say the revolution will not be televised, and I like to ask, like, what if television could be revolutionized? And that's part of what this production company wants to do. And I just made my first short film that I am calling a provocumentary, and it was inspired by really COVID. When COVID happened, the pandemic happened, with everything going on politically, environmentally, and virally, all that tension, it felt like the fabric of the universe was tearing apart. We just couldn't see it. And then I asked, but what if we could? What if one day we woke up and there was suddenly this hole in the sky, this gash, this sort of rift in the ceiling of our imagination? And this was this strange vision I had, and some people understood it when I was telling about it, and some people didn't. A lot of people were like, cool, go make that. And it took 3.5 years, but I made it. And I think one of the big lessons, sort of an ancillary lesson in financial freedom, is just focus and incremental steps. And that can be towards building a goal, buying a house, putting money aside, paying off debts. It's the same thing, really, of even um, working towards a fulfillment of a project. Michelangelo has that famous quote of when he was talking about doing the David statue, that he simply freed the angel from the marble, the statue from the marble. And a lot of that could be that same principle could be applied here. Is you have a vision, it's big, it's clunky, it's like this big hunk of marble, and little by whittle, also whittling away at it, you can get there. So that's why I chose this. I know it was a roundabout way, but that's why I chose this lesson. Is I have a big vision, and using these principles, a lot of them being mindset and a lot of practicality, chipping away to hopefully make it happen. I'm going to bring up the lesson that you sent, because the very first quote of it I thought was so great. It said, knowing what you want is the ultimate life skill. It's worth more than talent or hard work. It's almost worth as much as luck. Habit and disappointment is still probable, but on your own terms. Lack it, and you will be done and acted upon. And I just thought, like, habit and disappointment is still probable, but it's on your own terms. Like, that's something I've really been living is I might fail at this, but to just endeavor, I know there'll be lessons, that rich lessons that'll come with it. And I'd rather live that life than a life of like being afraid to try, or, um, you know, waiting for the quote unquote perfect, circumstances to happen, because that seems like an endless like carrot on the stick.
Yeah, Ajashanti talks about people come to him and want the answers to life, and he asks them, what's the most important thing to you? And most people do not know the most important thing to them. And without knowing your most important thing, you can't really do anything. You mentioned Michelangelo and David, and I love that, because what he did, he said he just chipped away everything that was not David.
And everything that was in the way, right? Everything in the way. And sometimes that looks like friendship. Sometimes that looks like relationships. Sometimes that looks like a job. Sometimes that looks like a city you're living in. That looks like habits that we have that keep us, stuck, literally, kind of cemented in our ways, old ways of being. So yeah, it's a great metaphor.
Yeah, Vicki Robin has always said that people's issues with money are fundamentally a lack of direction in life.
Yeah, one of the I did a few sessions in Under Earners Anonymous, and one of the things that really stuck with me about that, like the one big takeaway, was because a lot of the 12 steps, there's an addiction to something, and they called Under Earners, and a lot of the money things is that there's an addiction to vagueness, which I thought was, yeah, just being addicted to vagueness, not knowing, because if you don't have to look, you can't be held accountable.
Yeah, I
And
think.
I'm sorry, and that's one thing that you really stress in your course, is getting unvague. Getting very clear, like getting real with the numbers. And once you do that, there's a sobriety that comes.
Yeah, sobriety is a beautiful word for it. There's a clarity in knowing what you need to do to get what you want.
Yeah, and I will say, just to get real about it, one of the struggles I'm having too about making the production company a reality is I have no idea what it would take. Like I look at an animation, and I can tell that I need new team members already, because I look at an animation and I'm like, I don't know if that costs 10K to make or 50K to make or 250K to make, right? So figuring those things out is a big part of my current, like what do you call that? Like just edge right now, or the current plateau that I'm at.
Well, one of the things I think about is capitalism enforces conformity by the fact that we need money to survive.
Yeah, it is um, that's the hamster wheel analogy, like exactly. And if you want to play by that rules, you
The promise of financial freedom is that, if you can actually create enough passive income that meets your expenses, you no longer have to conform.
yeah. And what I really loved too, on your most recent, you did an interview with I forget the gentleman's name, but I know you were on the podcast with Vicki Robin, and
Yeah.
you guys were talking about this, realizing that basically, you can riff here, but the me summarizing it was that basically the almost the not the false promise of financial freedom, but the thing they don't tell you about, meaning like, hey, you're still going to have to deal with your shadow, your stuff, like you're still going to have to deal with the sort of God-shaped hole that financial freedom sort of promises to sort of fill in. And I think inherently, I've realized that I've kind of known that's where I want to keep the fingers of my pulse. That's where I want to keep most close to me. Those life-giving things, the qualities of the soul, the qualities of a connection to spirit, to God, to the universe. But I'm also now yin-yanging myself and realizing, but I also have to deal with this. And this freedom is what I want. And this freedom is like the missing dharmic piece of my life that I'm a little not even stunted, because I'm still working it, but I'm more chipping away at it rather than having a much longer runway that financial freedom can provide.
Well, yeah, I think, one of our first conversations was this idea that like money is really having to deal with the material world, and you have such a connection to the other world
Yes.
that there are times where you do not want to deal with the material world.
Yeah, so I'm apprenticing under an author and teacher and guide named Bill Plotkin right now, and he often talks about there's the sacred dance and there's the survival dance, and you need to know both and dance both.
Mm, that's beautiful. Yeah, I mean, so in the podcast that you're referring to with Jordan Grummett and Vicki Robin, one of the things I was saying is that, in the marketing of financial freedom or the FIRE movement, there's this idea that, oh, once you get this thing, you'll be happy, right? And on some level, that's true, right? But happiness doesn't last forever. We're still subject to the cycle of samsara. And at some point, you're going to realize, oh, it was just another thing on the hedonic treadmill. And now I got to figure out what's next. But I think that's where the interesting stuff happens, right? Like, if you can hit financial freedom, you no longer have any more excuses not to address the inner shadow.
I can track some of the places where my wrestling with money has come in, but I think that I love the hedonic treadmill theory because it's always wanting more, right? And that can also apply to not just not just money, material capitalism, but samsarically, whether we call those the seven deadly sins, but more lust, more love, more attention, more, more. There is some version of that it's like the hedonic treadmill feels very material world, and then the samsaric wheel feels very much like of the kind of, I don't know, that God shaped hole we were talking about. That almost feels like where the middle spoke would be, keeping us there. And then I also liked from the lesson, you were talking about no prison is more powerful than the one that we don't know we're in. I think that is really that's just really huge. And we are fish to water to capitalism. We're so in it. We're so in the sort of system. And I do want to say, I think it's more late stage capitalism. I feel like I do believe there's virtuous ways of living in this free market world. One of the things I've noticed is it's almost like we're experiencing what I would call the shadow side of freedom, and maybe even the shadow side of freedom is what you and Vicky were talking about, where like you have freedom, but I still have to deal with this. Another aspect of the shadow side of freedom is you can go to the grocery store and there's like 90 versions of kombucha. Rigorous sides of freedom, and what financial freedom really does talk about, is having a responsibility. That freedom requires responsibility, and I think we're beginning to now look at like to what, right? To what in who or what are we in service to, and who or what are we responsible to? Is that the planet? Is that our own soul? Is that a divine force? But certainly just this system that'll kind of like spit us out doesn't seem like it's working. It doesn't seem like anybody wants to be there as well.
Yeah, and I think, I would suggest in the lesson that like ultimately your responsibility is to your dharma, right? Like there are certain things you have to do in life, just like the survival dance you're talking about. And hopefully if you hit financial freedom, uh, you have dispensed with that survival dance, and now you're now fully responsible for the other dance, living out your dharma and doing the thing that you were supposed to do with this life, the thing that you can probably hear within yourself if you just had the time to be quiet.
Yeah, I've shared this, I think, with you before. One of the places I get stuck is I know what my dharma is. Like, I'm very clear about my dharma. And as soon as I start strategizing, as soon as I start trying to figure out how to market, or how to bring it to market, or how to get views or likes or any of that, it's like I lose the plot. It's like I step off the dharmic path. And so I've been really wondering where, uh, like this notion of dharmic marketing or soul centered marketing or any of that is, because it's that seems like an aspect where I lose connection to that dharmic source, and I'd be happy to just even hear what you think around that.
Well, to me, it's really about the fact that your dharma has to be mixed up with capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like in order for you to do the thing that you want to do, you've got to do all the things that you don't want to do, like marketing and selling. Um, like there's a purity to your vision that I think gets derailed because it has to meet the marketplace, and that sucks.
Yeah, exactly. That's the Elizabeth Gilbert says, whether you're in a relationship or whether you're looking for a place to call home or whether it's a job, you have to find your favorite flavor of shit sandwich. Like everything is going to come with the thing you don't want to do, and you have to find your favorite flavor of that to, to excel and to be at peace with whatever you're dealing with. Like, in a person, there's always going to be the annoying traits. In a place, there's going to be the weather or the traffic or, the whatever. You're out in the middle of nowhere, and there's the inconvenience of being so far away. So, yeah, what's your favorite flavor of shit sandwich?
And you bring up something really interesting here, right? Like I have some young students who take the course, and they're really upset about like all the burdens that having to work and having to make money causes. and they want to do the thing they want to do. And part of me just sort of chuckles at that, like, oh, you thought this was going to be easy, right? Like living out your dream was supposed to be easy. In the lesson, there's one of my heroes, Brian Stevenson, who actually was a law student he was one of my law school professors, talks about like doing anything great requires an uncomfortable commitment, right? Like whether you're an athlete or you're an artist, like any greatness requires some level of discomfort. You have to transcend who you currently are to become the person that you're going to be.
Yeah, and I think for the listeners out there, one thing I found is that's 1,000% true, and you get to kind of decide how you want to do your hustle and hard work. Right? There's the hustle culture, which fast, go, 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 and maybe that's better in your youth. But you can also get burned out. I just prefer the long, patient, one at a time game. Like kind of working behind the scenes, chipping away at it. Before we started recording, I call it like the Shawshank Redemption effect, where little by little you're just chipping away at that prison wall to get there. And that to me has just worked because it's slow, it's steady, and that comes with its own annoying things and all that. But I found that like sometimes if I'm in a haste and I'm hustling, I'm going so hard and going so fast all the time, I make more mistakes, and I'm like, I get a little more, I don't know, amped up, and I like to be a little more earth paced when I choose that. But yeah, it's kind of like choose your pace and like stay as focused as possible, and it'll get there. Like you don't have to sprint up Everest. Some people might, but you can. It's still one step at a time. You'll get there.
No, I love that. There's this famous story where Jeff Bezos is at a dinner and finally, for the very first time, meets Warren Buffett. And he asks Warren Buffett, "Hey, your investing strategy is like so simple. Why doesn't everyone do it?" And Warren Buffett says, "No one wants to get rich slowly."
Yeah, yeah. I had this insight once. It was like the difference between I want to be a millionaire and I want to become a millionaire.
I think I get it, but explain it.
Well, like I want to be a millionaire is like I want to now Instagrammable culture. I want to be a millionaire. I want to be a millionaire. And then the I want to become a millionaire is I want to endeavor and do what it takes to actually to be there to reach that goal. The becoming I feel like the I want to be. I mean, they're the same, right? They're the same goal, but the I want to be is the like want it now, kind of like you were talking about those young students, like without even realizing what it actually takes. But the I want to become, I think, is a more responsible, like teach me the lessons that can, teach a man to fish, teach a millionaire to fish. Lessons that come with becoming one.
Well, so this lesson is really about having a vision for the future, right? And and this is where I feel like you fit in so well because in the lesson, Gloria Steinem says, right, like the first act of creation is imagination, and you're all about imagination, right? Like you can't go anywhere until you first imagine it.
Yeah, and Adrienne Marie Brown, who was not only in the opening but someone who I love, and she's got this fantastic podcast with Krista Tippett on Being. She talks about we are literally living in someone else's imagination. We just inherited, whether that's for the forefathers or whoever, just the way it should be or the way it has been. And that the new, she says there's nothing new under the sun, but there are new suns. So I love that as well. So yeah, we're simply inheriting imagination. And a lot of times we're inheriting our own imagination. Like today's version is someone else's has dreamed. There's that, let me think, there's that quote that goes, if you're not changing it, you're choosing it. And so, yeah, like whatever life you're living, if you're not actually doing the active pursuit to change it, you're choosing it. So you have to, yeah.
Yeah, another way to put it is like there's no such thing as not choosing.
Correct. And Tirsi Engelhardt, our dear friend and mentor and wise woman elder, she says, whatever you choose your choices.
What does that mean?
Well, like, so if you have a choice to make, don't regret that you didn't do the other thing. Like, oh, should I go to San Diego or should I go to, Chicago? Should I have chocolate? Should I have vanilla? Like, don't regret. Like, if you choose chocolate, savor it. Don't be thinking, oh, I wish I should have got vanilla. So whatever you choose your choices. It's like an act of responsibility, but also just fully, there's Wu Wei.
Hey, Wu Wei.
fully owning the life you have right now. It's gratitude. I mean, Tirsi's got a million. Every single axiom of hers somehow relates back to gratitude. Yeah. So whatever you choose your choices. So this is the life you've. This is the cumulative life you have. Choose this, and if you don't like it, choose something else.
That's so beautiful. One of the things I think a lot about with Tirsi is she talks about this idea that we have to make our choices conscious, because in any addiction, we're making choices without knowing why, the underlying reasons behind those choices. And to me, I mean, this goes to the idea of the shadow that you're talking about.
Yeah, we can't see it, and it's sort of choosing for us. And that's that Carl Jung quote that I don't know exactly off the top of my head, but something like, "Anything you don't make conscious, we'll call it fate." You know. So,
yeah, and until you make the unconscious conscious, it will rule your life, and you will call it fate.
yeah, exactly. You got it. Nailed it. Yeah, that's powerful. You know, and I think I don't know what the real definition, the difference between fate and destiny, but I think that you can kind of create your own destiny by conscious action and imagination.
And that's what the lesson really is about, right? Conscious action and imagination. This lesson is about creating a video to actually bring forth your vision to the world and actually speak it out loud. Tell us about your experience of making that video.
I remember making the video. Since I've taken the course twice, I did two different ones, and I think the second one was more I think I preferred that one. I remember going to I remember talking about the multimedia production company. I remember like speaking about Worlds Within and the people I wanted to work with, the clients I wanted to work with, the films and productions I wanted to do. And I found this really, and I've always had a vision of it being in a barn, some kind of barn. So what I did was I actually found a barn that I loved. I was in Vermont at the time, and there was this barn that got this farm that got repurposed into an education center. They were doing arts programs and different things there. So on the big silo of the barn was this beautiful kind of mosaic and mural on there. So it was very colorful. So I went there and recorded my video and talked about it. And I'm still chipping away at it, still chipping away at the video. And I don't know what I can say with my relationship to the imaginal and imagination is there are just things that and we can kind of tie this in with grace too, right? Like there are these seeming anomalies, and I don't know if that's karma. I don't know if you chip away and do enough good deeds that some kind of blessing comes. If you're more present to it, if they really are miracles, if they really are, if they're like uh, given as good merit, or if they're truly just blessings upon blessings. But I've realized, like, I actually have it right here. I'm glad I have it. This is a chapter. This is a great book that I've been reading called Ignore Everybody and 39 Other Keys to Creativity. Just to give you a sense here and we'll get back to the video. I know I kind of just took a segue, but some of the chapter headings are the idea doesn't have to be big, it just has to be yours. If your business plan depends on suddenly becoming discovered by some big shot, your plan will probably fail. And that's like a chapter. And he kind of has these little actions and goes into it. But that's actually what I can see. A lot of my kind of false hope was being like, someone might discover me. I've been waiting to be discovered, like an artist is or a musician is. And then you're sort of catapulted out of obscurity. And part of me even creating the opening was this literal, like, I need to create a hole and walk through it. I've been waiting to be discovered. Like, let me just create my own threshold. So what's funny, I haven't even shared this with you yet, and who knows if it'll come to fruition or not, but I might as well record it for all, to archive it. But a week after I did the opening, I had a meeting with DreamWorks about the good seats. And so they asked for the pitch. They loved it. I'm waiting right now to hear, but you just never know how these things can happen. And so what I've resigned myself to is much like chipping away at the debt, the credit card debt of the student loan debt. I just chip away at the project debt. Like I am like, okay, one brushstroke at a time, one sentence at a time, make these visions come to life as best I can. And knowing that, I can't, who knows if that'll ever bring me. I mean, this is the Bhagavad Gita, right? Like we're not responsible. We're not. The fruits of our labor are not necessarily ours, but only the actions. So all I can do is chip away and create, hoping that one day they'll add up to something. One day they'll add up cumulatively to financial freedom.
Yeah, and what I love about that story, John, is so many analogies to personal finance. Like, you can tell the story of getting a meeting with DreamWorks, and that's amazing, right? But the story doesn't talk about all those hours you spent working on that project, Good Seats, right? And all those hours are the reason why you got the meeting with DreamWorks.
That's the prep when preparation meets opportunity.
Yeah. And your whole thing is the world's within, right? That's the name of your company. And it reminds me of the Gospel of Thomas quote that we constantly use with each other. Can you give out the quote?
Yeah, it's I first heard this. My arts school teacher, Susan Waterzeller, she wasn't very religious at all. She was always more of a philosopher. But she goes, "Yeah, I don't really quote Jesus, but this is my favorite Jesus quote." And I remember exactly where I was when I heard it. And the quote is, "If you bring forth what is within you will save you. If you do not bring forth what is within you will destroy you." And that to me is like the most spine straightening, like that. I'm not afraid of death as much as I'm afraid of that quote. Really, I'm more afraid of not bringing forth what is within me. That terrifies me. And another way of saying that is I'm terrified to not live my dharma. That's really what at the end of the day frightens me beyond no end, because I feel like our souls are given a duty, a task, a way to contribute to this world as a way to be alchemized by endeavoring to go after that, and the trials and the struggles help make you who you are. And so, yes, it's been a slog at times. Yes, it's been a pain, but also, Stephen Pressfield has this great book called The War of Art, where he talks about resistance being the sort of plebeian force, protosaic force that's like going against the universe, and that ultimately, when you little by little add discipline to get over that, then there's those gifts of like touching the muses, or you just feel so in the flow state, and that could be grace, that could be gratitude, that could just be presence, that could be freedom. So, yeah, if you do not bring forth what is within you, what is within you will destroy you. It's I think it becomes doubly hard when you actually do know what is within you, what you are capable of, and when you've been gifted ideas or visions. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to do over here.
Yeah, and fundamentally, bringing forth what is within you is the point of this whole lesson, right? That's the whole, like, I'm asking people to create a video saying what is within you, what is the dream of your life as it's meant to be. And if you do not bring forth that, it will destroy you. And what's interesting is that I feel like the most successful people that take my course are the ones who do this video, right? Like if you skip this video, like, oh, it's super hard, I'm scared, right? Like, fear is the mind killer. Like, I don't want to do this because I don't want to put myself out, or it's super vulnerable to say what I actually truly want out of this life. You're not going to actually do this. You have to know what you really want, and you have to know what's within you that you want to bring forth.
Yeah, and I think you take it a step further. I don't know if it's in the lesson afterwards or not, or the following lessons, but it's also, all right, now what would it take? What would it take to make that real, in the books? And so that's been a thing I've been, again, it's like, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? That's where I've been, taking a project down and looking at it and saying, okay, what is this actually going to take? What are the resources? And I also find that, talking about conformity, there's the 9 to 5 that so many of us live on. But there are, like, there's that quote, like, even Beyonce has 24 hours, right? There's people who are super prodigious in getting so many things done. There's even a discipline of whether it's getting up early, staying up late, beg, borrowing, stealing, finding out, working on your lunch hour, finding these little ways where you can be working towards your drama, bringing that vision to life. And that's something that I've had to do. And then even I have a thing called Money Mondays, where I, go through my weekly expenses, and for my accounting, for my purposes, it just helps me check in, with the. And if I don't, there's been times where I haven't checked in a little while, and I literally feel out of integrity. So go back, clean it all up, and just do that little weekly check in. So, and it makes all the difference.
It's interesting you bring up the issue of integrity of your vision, right? Like to your vision. Yeah, I think, Beyonce has 24 hours, which is true. And what she does is she buys the hours of other people.
Yeah.
Right. And it reminds me of you talking about like, oh, I'm going to need certain people to work with me. And I'm just curious, and I don't have any, there's nothing behind this question, but like, what would it be to know the numbers of what it would cost to buy other people's hours?
Sorry, what would it be to say that question one more time?
Like, if you actually sat down and thought about how much it would cost to get the services you need to build the thing you want, is that a scary thing, or would that actually be empowering?
Well, so two things. I had to do that for the opening. I had to hire a special effects artist, and I hired a few people for that. And so I had to get real. I had to get real with that. And that was, it's confronting. But the scale of what I want to do is super confronting. It's in like it's strange because, yeah, it's confronting in the sense that my own vagueness is, I wouldn't even know how long a project would take. I've always described myself as a solo acoustic guitar player who's ready for a band, right? But I don't know what making music is without that. I don't know what like how other people's workflows are. If, like what I can do in a day might take people 3 weeks to do. So, and then when I'm trying to break free from, I know how to make art. I know how to make two-dimensional images, how to make a movie, how to make animation. And I've done some research. It's part of the vagueness is like, so when I was researching animation, for instance, they typically say that there's like think of like South Park animation. Now it looks like almost like paper doll style, like stop motion-y. That I think is about I think $1,000 a minute is what they would call that for a price. And then you go to something like Pixar, and it's $1 million a minute. Which is why if it's a 90-minute film, they're taking $100 million to make. So it all depends on like the quality of animation, the people, and that's them using overseas outsourcing animators over there. So yeah, it's a real daunting task. And then I would have to go look for like how and where do I get the number, and then who and where do I get the money from, or the resources? Do I start a nonprofit? Do I already have the business incorporated, but I really can't make it happen until I do have a exact number around it, and that has been a struggle. So I've done it more rather than starting a company like the huge project. I've been doing it more, rather than starting the huge enterprise. I've been breaking it down like project by project.
Man, Jon, I love it. Your vision is basically eating the largest elephant ever imaginable.
So you'll like this. I would say, people always ask me who your favorite artist is, and I would always have to answer like Jim Henson. He's probably one of my favorite because literally he talk about a nonconformist. He basically said to culture, like, I'm not going to play by your rules. You come to me. You come play in my sandbox. I'm going to create my own world here, and you guys come play by my rules that are zany, that are wild, that are colorful, that are Muppet filled. And there's this great book that I love that's called Make Art, Make Money. And it's basically a business biography on Jim Henson. And when people asked him what was the first thing he did when he became successful, and he said, I hired my boss so that someone else could handle the business side, and he knew he could just stay in his lane. And I think that's fantastic advice, especially for a creative like me or other creatives. But before then, you're going to have to deal with all these things. And that's still the plateau I'm at.
So ironically, Jon, your idea of financial freedom will be able to hire your own boss.
Yes. Yeah. Tell me what to do. Just let me stay in the creative sandbox. Yeah. And I think boss meaning like business partner, someone who gets who loves that world, who knows that world, who's good out there, kind of interfacing, trudging up new business. That's one of the hardest things about being a freelancer is you have to be, I'm a designer, I'm an artist, I'm the bill collector, I'm the secretary, I'm the, email follow upper, like contact person, all those things. And to just have others to handle that and have me be able to stay in the idea and creativity place, that's going to be my happy zone for sure.
Well, John, we're coming up on our time here. Anything in the lesson that you want to bring forth before it destroys people?
Yeah. I would just say there's magic and aliveness in following your dream, like 1,000%. And that truly is priceless. And you're going to have to contend with the material world, with bills, but the adventure of the life, the emergence of the life, the spontaneity and serendipities that happen when following your dream, when believing in the more than we can see, is truly worth it. And I don't even know what to call. I think it can be called a million different things, but you begin to have a relationship with it and an ongoing dialogue with it that has made my life so fulfilling and has made me, um, one of the richest men ever.
Well, and ultimately, what you're talking about is what the money is for. And I think if there's a way to cap this lesson about owning your vision for the future, realizing your money is for the creation, making heaven on earth, as we say, creating that vision and manifesting it, incarnating it into the world. And that is really what the money is for.
Yeah. Like the money really for me would be for not having to be worried about the money.
In other words, financial freedom.
In other words, financial freedom.
Well, thank you, John. Wonderful conversation. Tell everyone where they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me, like I said, online. My website is jonmarro.com, JONMARRO. And then Instagram is a great place. I really don't do Twitters or the other socials that much, but Instagram at Jon Marro, JONMA.
And what sort of inquiries would you be open to getting?
Yeah, I do. As of now, I do a lot of branding and creative content for brands, for thinkers, for philosophers, for dreamers, for fugitive activists. I just directed my first film. I'm an idea man. If you have a vision that wants to be brought into reality, I do that. And I also do creativity coaching. If you've been looking to find your own wellspring of creativity, sometimes it just gets stuck in there that you might have been told when you were young or otherwise that you're not creative, but that there's something within you wants to come out, and you know that if you don't bring it out, it'll destroy you. That's my sweet spot of creative coaching, is just getting you to I have a program called Integrity for Your Imagination, and it really creates the structure for your inner world to come to life.
And just so people know, like, you're just like not some schmo, and like you're actually a badass artist, just tell people some of the well-known clients that you've had.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Let's see. Here comes the name dropping portion of the podcast. Well, we both know I worked for Cafe Gratitude for a while. I was the resident artist, but then my first ever real gig, I started working with Jason Mraz before he became, as he started taking off, and then I kind of went along for the ride.
Your artwork was the reason he took off, right?
Probably some, but he was on his own trajectory. His voice, his talent. No, clearly he would have made
and his artwork.
Yeah, he would have made it without me. But yes,
not as big though.
I definitely helped for sure. Let's see: Jason Mraz, Dave Matthews, Counting Crows, Madonna, Maroon 5. I've done stuff for Whole Foods. I've done stuff for Credit Suisse. I've done stuff for Sony, Warner Brothers, MTV, Atlantic Records. Let's see, Manduka Yoga. And then I did I think most notably, I always like to say that I did a portrait of the Dalai Lama for his 80th birthday. So really, really cool commission. And then more recently, I've been doing things for Bayo Komalafe, Resma Menachem, Josh Schray of the Emerald podcast. So a lot of good forward thinkers that are really reimagining culture right now.
Well, the Emerald podcast is badass and is about to explode. So I encourage anyone who wants their brand to explode to visit Jon Marro. Thank you, Jon. Thanks for showing up for the podcast. It's really good to see you.
Thank you, Douglas.
You've been listening to the School of Financial Freedom podcast. I'm Douglas Soy, your host. Thanks for listening. Thank you for tuning in to the School of Financial Freedom podcast, where we ask, what does it mean to live a meaningful inner and outer life? And how do our personal finances fit into that? We hope you enjoyed this episode and it helps you live with an increasing sense of empowerment, integrity, and agency in the world. For more information, resources, and to re-listen to this or any past episodes, visit our website at schoolofinancialfreedom.com. There you can find out when the next cohort of Financial Freedom 1, the online course is. If you've enjoyed today's show, please consider leaving us a review, as it helps more people find us and join our community of people interested in the intersection of money and personal and spiritual growth. I'm Douglas Soy, founder of the School of Financial Freedom. You can also find me on Substack, where you can subscribe to my popular newsletter, Money and Meaning. I also love hearing from readers and listeners, so write me at www.douglassoy.com. I'm grateful that you listened, and I hope that this episode has given you hope and insight into taking control of your finances to live the life you want.